We're live. Okay.
So
This is happening. Awesome. Yeah, I can see myself. I had to check the Facebook. Okay. So I am here. And I don't want to screw up your last name. It's Kathryn Calamia?
Calamia. Yeah,
Calamia.
The hard one.
Okay. It was a 50-50 chance. So I'm Casey Bowker, and we're hosting episode 3 of the Comic Creators TV, live from my house, not from Pop Rock, where it normally is with Jason. And where are you located, anyway?
New York. So
New York.
Fun. Yeah.
So you are on the lockdown of lockdowns. I'm in upstate, so we're not quite as locked down as you are, but
yeah, the city, the New York City areas, it's been fun. I don't think I've left my house in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
4 weeks, I think.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to jump all over the place a little bit. I do have like some specific questions, but I also want you to just kind of to go off. But let's do a little before we get into that kind of stuff. Who are you? What do you do? What are you all about? Tell me about who you are, and tell me about Comic Uno for the people watching who may not be as familiar, and kind of like what you've done out in. I'm just gonna say the geek-verse as it is, because you've kind of touched on all these different outlets as well. So let's get to know you.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I started Comic Uno 10 years ago. I'm 25 now. I started in high school. So
Nice.
And grew that. It's a YouTube channel where I review comics and I do weekly comic reviews. But, there's no comics right now. So I'm doing other stuff. We're all trying. But yeah, I grew into doing comic journalism and currently work at Newsarama and DC Universe, the streaming service, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
I've worked for IGN. I've worked for TV Guide, New York One. So all Fandom I've worked for. So all different outlets. And graduated a year ago for TV writing with my master's, and really trying to delve into that side of stuff. But yeah, why I'm here as a creator, I write comics. So
Yeah.
I'm a writer of like Father Like Daughter and The Colored Dancer. I'm sure we'll get into the spiels of what those are about, but we have 5 issues of like Father Like Daughter, almost done with the 6. So crossing my fingers, we'll be launching a Kickstarter soon for that. And
Awesome.
yeah, The Dancer is 4 issues. That's actually all done, and been trying to pitch that around. So it's been fun. I'm sure I am missing stuff, but that's the most of it.
I think you've hit on quite a bit of things, which is awesome. You're very well-rounded, which is great. So tell me, well, let's go back. So 10 years ago, Comic Uno, like, how did you come up with that idea? And tell me a little bit more just about that YouTube page.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved comics. My dad got me into comics when I was super young, and around high school, me and my friend, we wanted to do a show for comics just because we wanted to discuss our favorite comics. And originally it was called Comic Duo. So the name Comic Uno came out of my friend didn't like comics anymore. Still my best friend to this day. So we still love each other, but we just didn't want to do the show. And I was like, I still want to do this. So made it into Comic Uno, and that's kind of the birth of that. I mean, I feel like it's changed over the years format wise. I used to just do like individual reviews, and now it's like one big show where I rank all like my favorite comics of that week. It's gotten pretty popular in that regard. Happy with the responses of it. And yeah, I used to do a lot of like TV reviews for like the CW DC stuff. Currently review like Harley Quinn and Young Justice. So having fun with that. And yeah, just try to cover a lot of comic stuff in a unique perspective.
That is awesome. Yeah, I caught your review of Stargirl because I haven't watched it yet. Because I don't know, is it out this week? I couldn't remember what the date was.
Mid-May,
exactly.
actually.
Mid-May. It got pushed back. Yeah, I remember it was supposed to come out this month, and then it got pushed back. So you got to see that, and I was kind of like, how is it going to work? And you know what I mean? I am excited about it. I watch all those other CW shows, and I know this was one of those weird hybrids on the DC Universe and the CW, even though it was made for the DC Universe, whatever.
They're like, let's just put it on the CW because we want views.
I think at some point they're all going to go to HBO Max. That's my thought process. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking at some point. Okay, so that's awesome. So you're just a one-person show. You're the Uno of Comic Uno. And you kind of hinted at it. Like, what's changed in the last 10 years? Because YouTube obviously now is completely different. It used to almost be like a Vine, and now you can see full-blown programs. So what's changed for you, though, in the last 10 years?
Yeah, I could talk about the changes of YouTube forever because I think it's so intriguing. But yeah, for me, like I said, what you were just saying, I think before it was like Vine, where the shorter the video, the better, and that's how you caught people. Yeah. So again, those individual reviews, kind of bite-sized reviews, were more popular. But now you have like the Shane Dawsons or the Jenna Marbles who could release hours of content. And it's okay to do that. Now that we have like Netflix and all this other stuff, people are used to watching longer things on their computers. So people are more forgiving and honestly probably want to see longer content than the shorter content, which is definitely the flip side of what it used to be. So now doing a show instead of 20 videos is more successful. And I time-wise like doing that more. Again, used to do the individual reviews. Used to take me a very long time to talk about them all, but I like that I could just do one big show, discuss all those comics, and I've found success in it, and I'm happier making that type of content. And I guess what's changed again, like I think the TV shows have changed a lot. I think more people are excited to watch episode by episode for the CW verse, but now a lot of people binge it. So doing episode reviews aren't worth it. I think for me, doing the advanced reviews are worth it because people want to hear if it's a good show or not. A season review is more worth it, or a topic from that show is more worth it. So I think that's changed as well over the critique side of YouTube.
That's pretty cool. So I'll just ask you your own personal opinion in the CW verse. What's your favorite show?
Probably Legends of Tomorrow. I do a podcast for that. I told you I probably forgot stuff. So I've been doing that since.
What's it called?
Legends of Tomorrow podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You got to take the rights to that.
We did, it was interesting. We actually launched that podcast right when the show was announced. I didn't know anything about the show. I was just like, okay, let's jump in. And we honestly didn't like the first season, like most people. But then luckily ended up loving the rest of it. So I would say Legends I enjoy the most, but I try catching them all. But I binge them all. I used to watch them episode by episode. Legends is the only one because of the podcast. I watch episode by episode. Okay.
I watch everything live, and I find it's, I don't mind it. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain shows that, you can wait for a week, and I don't like Flash and stuff like that. I really don't mind it. Jason says that Legends is his jam. And I'm sure everyone who listens to your podcast would agree with that.
Yeah, we have a knit group.
You have a knit group. But I think it's, I love the binge. I definitely love the binge, and I do like that. But every once in a while, I'm like, okay, I don't have to do it all in a weekend, because that's what I do when I binge. I'm like, oh my gosh, Tiger King, that's done. 12 hours, I'm out, or whatever it was. So, okay, cool. So, tell me about. Well, let's go MFA and TV writing. Like, what made you want to go down that path?
I think ultimately I want to write for television or comics, but either one that, could build my career. I love both. I love both mediums. I saw the program was available and applied to it, got into the program, and it was something I've always loved. And I was got my bachelor's in communication, so it wasn't like I was a stranger of writing scripts or whatever, but also focused a lot on journalism in my undergrad, and I was like, hey, I kind of really want to learn more about TV writing to better myself, so that's why I got the MFA, to kind of learn more about it, and I've definitely learned more about just TV writing and getting into the industry, which is interesting because I think with TV there is definitely more of a path and a structure to the writing compared to comics. Not that there isn't a structure for comics, but there's so many different rules people follow for comics, and for TV there seems to be a little bit more set rules. And I think that's fun to look into.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So when you go and tackle a TV script versus a comic script, like, because a lot of people who watch these things will watch this, well, later on we'll say, what is that process like if they're trying to write either TV or comic book scripts themselves? Like, and I find writing can be different depending on the people sometimes.
Yeah, the people, the medium. It's interesting because I think a lot of times, like, you'll either see vice versa, a comic person trying to get into TV and they, only because they have written those characters before, see that less. Obviously, usually they do have a TV background, but then you have like a TV person trying to get into comics, and it's a very different beast. And I think different mediums, you have to master the medium itself and know about the medium before jumping in. But the difference is TV, you have a lot more room to do stuff. So you need to you could dive into the characters even more than a comic, and the comic, you have such little time and little pages to fill up. It's 22 pages. Like, there's so much story you could tell, and you also have to really pay attention to the page turn. So you have every 2 pages is like a cliffhanger that you need, or you want the next person to turn the page. With TV, that's act breaks, so commercial breaks. There's 4 acts in a TV show, and you want people to come back from the commercials. So you have, again, a longer amount of time to suck people in compared to a comic where it's just like, either if you just compare it to the 1 issue, you need people to buy every issue. TV technically is free. So there's so many different components that goes into selling a comic and trying to gain people's eyes and / get them onto your fan base. So I would just say comics, there's less time to do everything, in my opinion. But then also, I guess producing a comic takes a little less time than a TV show. So
probably a lot less money to produce a comic. Less money too. Don't have to get actors, any of that stuff. That's okay. That's interesting. I mentioned it before we started filming. That's one thing we have in common. So I went to school for television film production. Nice. That's what my degree's in. And I've written a comic for Kickstarter, which I do want to talk to you about as well, as long as we're on the subject. How did you like that process? Tell me about your Kickstarter experience. Man,
a whole nother beast, right? Yeah. I love Kickstarter. I think we're seeing a lot of different creators that are DC, Marvel, big indies. Kickstarter, because you own all your rights and you get that money directly and you understand your fan base. It's just a different way to get your comic out. And it's interesting to see those Kickstarters get picked up from maybe an indie publisher to have another wave of releases to then release it to the retailer for people that miss those Kickstarters or in that vein of fan bases. So we're doing a Kickstarter. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of hard work. I think sometimes when people they launch too soon and they're just like, oh no, what did I do? I don't think I was ready for this. And I think that's when you fail on the Kickstarter. But you have to plan it and just learn about who you could target and about the platform itself. And I think every Kickstarter is a learning experience.
I absolutely agree. It's an emotional roller coaster too.
Oh yeah.
Because you start out real high and then you get really low in that 2-week slump, and then it goes high again like that last week, and you're like, oh my God.
It's like gambling.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's go dive a little deep into that. In your successful like father, like daughter, tell us about it. Give us the elevator pitch, and then you're on episode 6. Sorry, I'm thinking TV, issue 6. Though there's got to be some parallels as far as the content goes.
Sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I've actually written a pilot for my comic, so it's
okay. We'll talk about that then. So, well, first of all, give me the elevator pitch and how did you come up with the idea, and seeing it now 5 issues deep, getting ready for 6, that's pretty great. Most people do not even do that much. So let's go.
Yeah, so father, like daughter, do a lot of conventions. I have the elevator pitch. It's about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her, and then she inherits his abilities. So it's very drama-filled, but there's a lot of twists and turns. Issue 5 had a huge twist. That's out, so you guys could go check it out. And we get to see issues 6 through 8 to kind of revel in that twist of what's going on. Maybe we'll talk more further of that, but Yeah. What have I learned about these characters over the time? A lot. I've actually done this for 5 years, which is crazy. I mean, because it does take a long time to do indies. Now we're starting to pick up the pace, which is nice.
Yeah.
To release more issues than one a year. But we just had a trade come out that took us a little while to do, and then issue 5 came out at the same time. So the first arc technically is done because we count that as a trade, even though I count issue 1 through 8 as a full arc. But
Yeah.
you have to do it for the trades. But yeah, so I've learned a lot about the characters over time just because you live with them a bit and you just figure out what arcs you want to do. And again, making that TV pilot also helps to dive deeper and understand where your stories are going. So yeah, really excited to get you guys more issues.
Now, where did the story come from? Like, where did you base it from?
So around the time the New 52 was going on, I felt like there wasn't a lot of family storylines, a lot of character-driven storylines in that regard. So I really wanted to do something that was very character-driven. And I always say that the superhero stuff kind of takes a backseat. Not that, Invulnerable, our main character, is not a superhero, but it's dealing about stuff he does when he's at home, when he's longing for his daughter. Not that there's not action. There's definitely going to be a lot of action for the second half, but we slow it down a bit to make it more about this emotional roller coaster. So really, that's what I wanted to do because it was at a time that I feel like that didn't exist in comics.
So, which sounds awesome. I need to read them. I need to go and binge. I will binge them, which I actually do like doing in comics. I'll sit down and be like, here's 100 episodes or issues of Walking Dead. Let me go and just catch up on those.
It is nice. Like, there's definitely a different experience of binging a comic and being a Wednesday warrior for a comic. And I love both. I love both experiences. Yeah,
there's that anticipation of waiting, especially, I guess we can talk about this too, like what you're reading. I was going to wait till the end, but like the new X-Men by Hickman, I've been really loving. So I've been every issue, I'm like, oh my gosh, and all the tie-ins. Unfortunately, I'm also reading. So.
Oh man, good luck on that. I tried out all the first issues, and I'm like, all right, which one do I really want? And right now I'm at X-Men, obviously, and I'm a huge Kitty Pryde fan. So Marauders, I'm reading.
Marauders is like one of the greatest concepts of a comic ever. So smart.
Got those X-Men pirate on a boat. Tattoos.
So good. All right, so I'm going off on tangents. For the idea, what made you want to go to Kickstarter? I don't know if like that was, what came up with that, because some people think, okay, I have this great script, let me send it off to the big two or some of the indie guys and do it that way. Like, why did you say Kickstarter is going to be the way to launch my comic?
I think that Kickstarter is the way to launch your career in a lot of ways, because if you go to Marvel and DC without any published comics or any published anything, they're going to say no. You wouldn't even be able to get the chance to pitch anything to them because they come to you most of the time for that. And then, even the companies that you're able to submit, like Image and I believe Dark Horse has submissions, those you also kind of need previous work. It's hard to not know someone and get your book there. So, the comic book industry is a very small place, a very small industry. So you got to work your way up. And I think Kickstarter is a great way to A, build your fan base, and then B, build yourself, build your chances to try to launch your career. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And you said before you've also had to do the elevator pitch, so you're going to conventions too. Tell me. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I've been doing conventions probably as long as I've been doing the Kickstarter, so about like 5 years or so. You're a New Yorker. When Special Edition New York Comic Con, I think it was the second year, that was the first Comic Con I did, which is crazy to think that the big Comic-Con that was the first. Probably wasn't the smartest idea, but it's good to go into the
That's deep it, end. You jumped.
We did really well there too. It was like one of our best sales, so still happy about it. But Comic-Con's also kind of another beast. You I think as an indie creator, you need to do them. You need to put yourself out there because that's the way to get fans. Yes, you could get fans online, but there's so much you could do. You got to really meet people and understand your pitch and understand your strengths at a Comic-Con. If you are good at drawing or whatever, then you could do that. But, and then also understand if you're an extroverted person, if you're an introverted person, how to get people to the table, all that fun jazz. So I've definitely found success at Comic-Cons and I've enjoyed them. Obviously, we're all in the slump now that there's no Comic-Cons in a very understandable way, but you got to figure out other ways to promote your book if there's no Comic-Cons. But wait for those Comic-Cons to come back because they're also important.
They will come back. And there's still, there's virtual Comic-Cons that I think are going to start even catching on more than they are now. I think that's going to be kind of a new direction for a lot of people. So I see Wizard World's been doing it. I don't know if San Diego or New York will, but some of the other guys are doing it too. So I think that still will be a way to promote yourself in a unique way. So I think that's a good idea. All right. So what has been a piece of advice that you'd give somebody who says, okay, I wrote this comic. I think it's good enough to get it out to the world. I want to share it with the world. Kickstarter is the way I want to go. What's a piece of advice you'd give them?
I mean, work hard to finish that comic. So if it's just written, get your artists, get your colors, do a lot of research. I would say that's the biggest thing, and make sure everything looks good. For your Kickstarter page, you gotta maybe spend some money if you're not good at graphic design to make it look good, because that's a really important aspect. Is to, you did the comic, you did all this stuff. Now, I would say investing is important, and hopefully you believe in your product enough that that investment will turn into profit. Any business, you have to put an investment in to know that. So yeah, I would just say plan and research, understand what printing is, understand the business, ask questions also to people who have done it.
Absolutely. Good. Awesome. So what, same thing, same question, but we'll go over to the YouTube side of things. Like, you've been doing it for a very long time. Not everyone has. A lot of people probably have fallen off that you've maybe even seen throughout the years.
Sure.
Yeah, so now, if you were to go and start a YouTube page, someone asks you a question about this, it's so saturated, what advice would you give them?
Understand your identity, I would say. Understand what type of product you're trying to put out. Understand what you're good at. I think it goes anything. What's sad to say is YouTube and you are kind of your own brand. You kind of have to understand, again, what you're good at and what you can give to people that's different from other things. So just like your story where you kind of figure out a log line for your YouTube channel, make sure everything sounds cohesive, and try sharing it to social media, understand how to beat those Facebook analytics and all that fun jazz. And just connect with people, connect to other YouTubers, because especially in the comic community, if you're doing comics, we're a very friendly bunch, and we always like to help people.
That's awesome. I went to Comic-Con years and years ago. Do you know Robert Jefferson, who does Comics Explained, or that page?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. Yep, I met Rob.
Met him at a New York City Comic-Con, just sitting at a table, and we hit it off. And this is when he had DC Explained and Marvel Explained. They weren't together yet. And I was like, no, this is a really cool idea. No one else is doing this. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, I'm quitting my job and YouTube's going to pay me. And this is 7 years ago. I mean, this is a long time ago. And now he's probably doing very well for himself.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. It's so cool to see that. And yeah, he understood his brand. He has an awesome voice, and he knew that. So
he has a great voice. He's such a silky boy.
He does. That's what made it for him. And also, he's just really good at explaining comics.
Yeah.
But, same thing for Benny, who's his friend for Comic Historian. He kind of understood his brand and branching that out. So yeah, that's definitely the best advice for those type of things.
I think so. So you're a writer.
Yes.
You like to write. How did you find the rest of your team for your comic?
So I worked for a publisher, Short Fuse Media, and I actually made a YouTube video, which is crazy, looking for an artist. This is way back when. Because I was like, before I do DeviantArt, let's just make a video. Who knows?
Yeah.
And Short Fuse found my video, and they're like, hey, we would love to publish your comic. And we did that for 5 years. And now I wanted to self-publish this comic, so that's why I'm out with Short Fuse right now. But it was great that they were able to help me find my team, and I learned a lot from them to how comics about putting it all together. So because I was in college when I started making comics. So I think the way you learn to define all these stuff is by making it, right? Making the mistakes too of issue 1, right? You're like, oh, well, I could have done this and this and that.
Yeah.
And you learn throughout to see what you want to do next for your next comic.
So what would you say is the big difference between working with a publisher, even a small one, versus self-publishing?
One, you gotta do everything by yourself. I think self-publishing, you just have more control, and that's, the reasoning why I did it. I have complete control, but that also means you're just like Comic Uno. You're doing everything yourself, and you're the director, you're the writer, you're the producer, you're the PR person, you're everything in one. And that's definitely a hardship sometimes, but it's nice to know that you did all that. That's kind of a cool feeling.
That is pretty special, actually. You put something in the world, it got created, people are digging it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm going to give you a magic wand, and someone sees your comics and says, okay, this is really, really cool. We want to adapt it for television. And I assume that you're probably going to write the TV adaptation. Of course. Where do you want your comics to go? Like, do you want them on Netflix? Do you want them on YouTube? Do you want them on... Don't say sci-fi because it's probably going to get canceled that first season. But where would you see your comics being consumed on a television aspect?
I mean, I think Netflix is always a fun idea just because there's so many different genres. So I would say something that's a streaming service, but I think Like Father Like Daughter especially kind of fits for a free form, young adult thing just because it's about a teenager. I read another comic, The Dancer, a bit more mature. I could see that more for like probably like a FX.
Give me the pitch for that. I'll tell you where it's going to go.
The Dancer is about a young woman who's a dancer / assassin. And when she was little, she witnessed her parents being murdered in front of her, never dealt with that trauma until now. And that's the story. It's a psychological journey of dealing with her childhood trauma. Okay. Yeah.
Not freeform. That would be... FX is probably a good one, or FXX, like the more even adult version of FX, if that's even possible. But I could see that.
Right? Yeah. TNT, FX. I don't think it's HBO. I think HBO is just very, I would say, grounded, but you had Game of Thrones on there. But I don't know if it would fit in HBO. But something cable, but not like CW or whatever.
Not CW. USA. Is that still a network? I don't know.
yeah, I think so. Okay. They do their procedurals there. Okay. Oh, they did like Mr. Robot and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You never know.
Okay. Cool. I remember they did La Femme Nikita. And that's, an assassin girl killing people. So
that's true. Yeah. I definitely see, because The Dancer is so short, it'd be kind of interesting as a movie. Like the Father Like Daughter comic is definitely a TV show, but The Dancer I could definitely see as a film.
Have you thought about doing that then? Like going and writing a movie?
That's the one that I just wanted to put the comic in the world. Like, it's weird because I think for like Father Like Daughter, I would want to write that TV show, but for The Dancer, I wouldn't mind someone else adapting it.
Yeah.
Not that I love both of them, but I think it would be really interesting to see someone else adapt that as a movie, just because I mean, maybe 5 years from now, I'll be like, I'm a screenwriter now, but I find more comfort in TV and comics. I love movies, but just as of right now, just like I was saying before, I think everyone, with media, like if you're a TV writer, it doesn't mean you could be a comic writer or vice versa. So I think my strengths go into TV and serialization more than movies. Doesn't mean you can't write a movie and I learned to write more movies, but I enjoy TV and comics more.
I remember I met Matt Fraction years ago, and I'm a huge Chuck Palahniuk fan. It's probably my favorite novelist. And this is like right when the Fight Club comic was coming out. And I had read somewhere that Matt Fraction helped Chuck Palahniuk. And I was like, hey, like, what did you do to help Chuck Palahniuk, who is an amazing writer, do this comic? And he was like, he had zero idea how to write a comic. Zero.
Exactly.
And he was like, it's a and I didn't even think about it, at that time. He was like, it's, so different than writing a novel or even writing a screenplay. And he didn't know anything about the format or like voices. And like you said before, like page turn and like keeping people invested. Like he just wanted to write it the way that you wrote a book. And I was like, that is, I mean, obviously you're Matt Fraction. That's a very smart thing to say. But yeah, that's pretty cool about that.
Yeah, I definitely, even if you go to like TV and comics, what's interesting is I think, well, it depends on who you're writing for, but like comics, you have to be more descriptive. You kind of have to understand where the camera angles are and stuff like that. And then with TV, sometimes it's not good to be so descriptive because you're taking away from the actor or the director, and you have to be just descriptive enough. There's a balancing act in TV, so it's also interesting in that regard, just like action lines, we'll call it. That's more for TV language, but I think that's interesting, and that's something that I would say is the most similar. If you had to compare a medium, TV and comics are most similar, and then novels is a whole different game, and then I guess movies and TV are similar, but structure is so different, right, for a movie and TV show. So it's interesting stuff.
So give me an example of what you find a really good comic to TV translation. Like, what's been one of your favorites?
I really liked Runaways. I thought they did a really good job at making it different, but also staying true to what the comic was. I think of others that did a really good job. That's like the one that comes to mind the most. Yeah, I'm just going to say Runaways for now, because I think a lot of the DC shows, they just like changed it completely. But that's not a bad thing. Like, I think adaptation means adaptation.
Right.
Like, I think it should be your point of view. It shouldn't be exactly like the comic. So yeah, from a TV show perspective, I think Runaways did it really well. Okay,
good. I always really like most of the Marvel Netflix shows, and I'm a huge Daredevil fan. And even though they're not saying like beat for beat, they still did very good with added, taking like certain storylines and adapting them.
Yeah, Jessica Jones. Totally forgot it, because you're thinking about all the shows on now. Because
oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. Yeah,
it's so sad. And then obviously, sadly, those got canceled very sadly. But we'll see what Disney Plus is bringing us.
I know. I hope Charlie Cox, at least. Honestly, I hope all of them come back, but I could see him showing up because he was already in movies.
She-Hulk, why not? He could be
She-Hulk. He can do that. He could come in Spider-Man, whatever 3 is going to be. Maybe he represents Peter Parker. Now that he's outed, I don't know. Are you listening, Kevin Feige?
You better take notes.
These are my ideas. So, question. You were saying at the top of this thing that your channel is a little bit different now because we don't have new comics coming out. What do you think of this? Diamond is eventually going to be releasing things, but a lot of these guys are going to third-party shippers. I think DC's even coming out with comics next week. I think physically, right?
They teamed up with DCBS and Midtown to kind of create new distributors, which is crazy. I don't know. It's such a new thing. I do believe that the comic industry will change after this. I don't think Diamond will be the same.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if Diamond would be smart. I don't know if I would say smart enough, but if they broke themselves up a bit, I think could be interesting. Maybe that's how they could survive, but I don't know. It's so weird because with the DC stuff, a lot of retailers don't want to do it, because they have 4 days to get orders in, which is crazy. So honestly, I don't know. I think that's why no one has the answer right now. It's just because it's such a complicated answer. But I do think the future means the publisher or creator is going to have a stronger connection to, I would say the creator will have a stronger connection to the retailer in the future, more than just Diamond, going through Diamond and then doing that. I think that's the future. I don't know how.
I agree. Are you familiar with Bad Idea? Like that new? Okay, so when they announced that, and I've always been a huge Valiant fan. There's my little ninjak amongst other stuff. And when they said that they were going to just do direct to retailers and then a small retailer list, I personally thought it's a genius idea, not a bad idea, genius idea. Because I think that is one of the things, and even Valiant keeps their comic pulls like super low. I think you can only order like 5 at a time or whatever. Wow. But this is, I want 20 copies of this. okay, you get 20 copies of it and call it a day, which I think should be that way. Maybe you don't want 1,000 copies of X-Men number 1, regardless of how much it's going to sell, because it is going to sell, but you might also be left with, 300 copies sitting on your shelf.
Giving away for free comic book day.
Or whatever. Yeah, or donating or whatever, which some people do, which is nice. But like a lot of those are just sitting in crappy bins, in these old comic book shops. So I guess, I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent there. You think that's going to be a better idea? Like something like Bad Idea, where they just, Eric Stevenson from Image calls up a comic book shop and says, hey, how many Spawn 338s do you need?
If the publishers want to do that, or I would say, able to do that, I think that'd be a really good idea, because I think it makes the publisher happy that they know how much they have to print. And then secondly, it obviously makes the retailer happy because they understand that they could do the pull list for their customers and see how much they need. So I just think we need a better pre-order system as well. Because this is the only industry where pre-orders dictate sales when you haven't read the comic or even have an inkling on what the comic's about half the time. So I think maybe fixing the idea of pre-orders in the future will be interesting.
Yeah, it's a little different. Maybe now that you say that, I just got a vision of an E3, but for comics. So like, I know we have like these comic cons, which most of them are pop culture cons, and they rarely even talk about the comics unless you go to like Artist Alley. But imagine like an event that is like trailers for upcoming comics for the year that are like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Check this out. Are you interested? Because like, that's the only way we even know video games or movies is watching these trailers for the most part, or seeing gameplay footage. So maybe something like that where, maybe some comic book shop is like, I don't know if anyone's going to like this. I don't really care.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'd be interesting. I mean, I know they already do like the retail summits, and I guess that's similar, but it's so like only for the retailers. It's not for
us. Yeah.
I mean, as a journalist, it's cool that we're able to promote these books as much as we can. But I mean, you got to click on the article. You got to search for that article too. So we're not shoving it into your face. Yeah, I mean, also that goes into, do you promote it to other media? Like DC was like starting to like maybe post like here's a comic commercial during Arrow. And I think that's an even bigger question of like, how do you promote comics in a bigger scale?
Right.
You go to a movie theater, do you, give a comic away?
Yeah. That's a very good question. At least like, do it digitally. You know what I mean? Like if you go and see Birds of Prey, wouldn't it be sweet if they're like, hey, with your movie ticket, here's a code, you know what I mean, to check out like some other Harley episode or issues or Birds of Prey in general. I think that would be super fun.
That'd be awesome. And you could team up with the AMCs, the Regals, and I hope in the next 5 years we see that. And there's an opportunity because people love free stuff. So
yeah, and then what is it going to cost them, especially if it's old issues anyway? Like, I think that'd be fair. Come on, Jim Lee, you can do it.
Sure, you can.
So I have one last question, even though I could probably talk to you for a very long time because I want to rack your brain about TV stuff. What are you geeking out on right now? Like, what are you reading? What are you watching? We're all locked down. So does that mean you're writing more? Like, do we have more comics coming out from you? Or you just tell me, what are you geeking out on right now?
Definitely writing more, always writing. So I focus a lot this year building my TV portfolio. So I hadn't, obviously write comics all the time, but like Follow Like Daughter was at a place where I didn't have to write more just because we were already so much into the future. I was like, all right, I can stop this for a hot second. Dancer was already done. It was being produced. So like, all right, let me go to write my TV stuff. So honestly, I did that for a good year.
Wow. Okay.
And wrote 3 pilots. So got 3 pilots down. I just wrote a short film that it was for a contest. So I had to write it in a week. So
good luck.
Been fun.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm proud of it. Got to hand that in. I think in like a day or two. So I'm like, oh my God, is it good enough? But yeah, that was kind of cool. I got to write a short film. And I am starting another comic. I'll just say that. It's an idea I had for a TV show that I did an outline for and still kind of figuring out the plot. And
Yeah.
one of my friends who like reads all my stuff, he's like, dude, this works as a comic. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, think about this as a comic. Think about this as a Kickstarter. It's like, you're right. This does work as a comic. So right now I'm kind of reimagining it and trying to figure out how I could fit it as like a 6 or 4 issue mini. And I'm probably going to write the whole thing before I even get it produced. I would like to finish it all and just figure out what that arc is, or if it's a mini. I definitely would rather focus on mini series because Like Father Like Daughter is that ongoing book they'll go on forever.
Yeah.
But I think minis to focus on these creator owned stuff is definitely a little easier as a creator on Kickstarter. So yeah, I've been writing, and comic wise, I've been catching up with like things I hadn't read, which is weird because I've read so much, because when you critic, you have to.
Yeah.
So I've been reading like more of the indie, like Mariko Tamaki's Skim. I did an interview with her, and she mentioned that book, and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I've heard of it before, and I hadn't read it, so I got that on Kindle. So like the real indie stuff. So that's only common. Oh, I just read something to do a review for Newsarama. It was a Boom book. Eat and Love Yourself. Honestly, my editor asked me to review it. It wasn't on my radar at all, but that was kind of fun because I was like, oh, I hadn't even heard
no
about
idea what this is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read it, and it was a good comic. So I did that. TV wise, of course, everyone watched Tiger King. I finished that when that was out. And right now I'm watching 30 Rock. Believe it or not, I hadn't never seen it. And
oh my gosh,
comedy.
it is so funny.
Yeah, it's
so
fun.
funny.
I've seen The Parks. I've seen other shows like it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, let me watch 30 Rock. I like Tina Fey, and I needed something that wasn't too heavy because I was catching up on Killing Eve, and I love Killing Eve, but it's just like, I want to watch a comedy. So I've been watching that. And yeah, that's definitely a lot. So, but I wish I could binge more TV than, I wish I could binge more. I'm still working. So I still have the same job I've had, which I'm very lucky for, but don't have the time, sadly.
Hey, yeah. It sounds like you're getting a lot of stuff in, though.
Yeah, I am. I try. As I type, I'm just doing 3 things at once.
I literally think you just wrote a screenplay while we've talked. So,
yeah, but
there you go. That's awesome. So, Kathryn, where can people find you?
Oh, everywhere. On Twitter at Comic Uno, I'm probably the most active. Facebook also, it's Comic Uno Reviews. We can find me on Comic Uno. My YouTube channel is called Hating Clear Heroes, but you can find me. I saw
that. Yeah. Okay.
I never changed it, and people know me as that, so it'd be weird to change it now. So I'm like, you know what? Just people like it, so I keep it as that. But if you search Comic Uno, you can find me.
Yeah, I did.
And Instagram, I'm on, but I don't really use it much, and I know I'm bad, but just don't take too many pictures. So yeah, that's all the places you could find me. And again, my writing's at DC Universe, Newsarama, and I do the Legends of Tomorrow podcast.
Oh, where can we buy your comic?
Oh, right. Etsy. I have an Etsy store just under Comic Uno as well. Issues 1 through 5 is there. The Dancer issue 1 and 2 are there. I won't be releasing issue 3 and 4 until, pitching is done. So you'll get the ending then. And yeah, go check out my Etsy store. And my trade will be available in a month. Literally, I got the receipt. I'll be receiving them in a month. So once I get them to my doorstep, I'll be there.
Awesome. Well, it's been a super fun time chatting with you.
Thank you.
And I believe you can rewatch this episode if you want to see yourself later.
I probably won't, but I hope other people will.
Yeah, I hope so too. So everyone, thank you for watching from Pop Rock Adjacent. My name is Casey, and go read some comics.